A Treatise of Satan's Temptations. By Richard Gilpin. A Discourse of the Malice, Power, Cruelty and Diligence of Satan. Second part of Chapter 4. That Satan hath a great measure of knowledge. First, show that there are two things which are clearly out of Satan's reach. 1. Our future thoughts. He cannot tell what shall be our thoughts for time to come. He may possibly adventure to tell what suggestions he resolves to put into our hearts, but what shall be our resolves and determinations thereupon, he knows not. This is singled out as one part of God's prerogative, that he knoweth the determinate purposes and resolves of the heart aforehand, because he turneth the heart as he pleaseth. Proverbs 21:1. 2. Our present formed thoughts, the immediate and imminent acts of the mind, he cannot directly see into. He may tell what floating thinkings he hath put into our heart, but our own proper thoughts, or formed resolves, he cannot directly view. This is also particularly insisted on as proper to God alone. John 2. 24:25, Christ knew all men so directly, that he needed not that any should testify of man. This Satan stands in need of. He sometimes knows men and their thoughts, but he needs a sign or notification of these thoughts, and cannot immediately look into them. The reason why Christ needed not this, is rendered thus, for he knew what was in man. Matthew 12:25, that is, intuitively he knew his thoughts, and could immediately read them. 2. Secondly, I shall endeavor to explain how much, or how far he can pry into our thoughts. Several things are granted which argue Satan can go a great way toward a discovery. As 1. First, that he knows the objects in our fancy or phantasms, and this as clearly as we do behold things with our eyes. And the proof given hereof is this, that there are diabolical dreams, in which the devil cannot create new species, and such as our senses were never acquainted withal, as to make a blind man dream of colors, but that he can only call forth and set, in order those objects, of which our imagination doth retain the shadows or impressions, and this he could not do, if he did not visibly behold them in our fancy. 2. Secondly, it is certain he knows his own suggestions and temptations darted into our minds, upon which he can at present know what our thoughts are busied upon. 3. Thirdly, he knows the secret workings of our passions, as love, desire, fear, etc., because these depend upon, or are in a concomitancy, of the motions of the blood and spirits, which he can easily discern, though their motions and workings may be kept secret, from the observation of all bystanders. 4. Fourthly, some go further, as Scotus, supposing that he knows what is in our thoughts at any time, only he knows not to what these thoughts incline. But I leave this to those that can determine it certainly. In the meantime I proceed. 3. Thirdly, to show what a guessing faculty he hath of what he doth not directly know. He hath such grounds and advantages for conjecture, that he seldom fails of finding our mind. As 1. First, his long experience hath taught him, what usually men do think, in such cases as are commonly before them. By a cunning observation of their actions and ways, he knows this. 2. Secondly, he by study and observation, knows our temper and inclination, and consequently what temptations do most suit them, and how we do ordinarily entertain them. 3. Thirdly, he knows this the more, by taking notice of our prayers, our complainings and mournings over our defects and miscarriages. 4. Fourthly, he is quick and ready to take notice of any exterior sign, by which the mind is signified, as the pulse, the motion of the body, the change of the countenance. All which do usually show the ascent or descent of the mind, and at least tell him, what entertainment his offers have in our thoughts. 5. Fifthly, being so quick-sighted, he can understand those particular signs, which would escape the observation of the wisest men. There are some things small in themselves, and therefore unobserved, which yet to wise men are very great indicia of things. The like may be said of us, in reference to our inclinations, our acceptance or resistance of temptations, which yet he hath curiously marked out. 6. Sixthly, no doubt but he hath ways to put us upon a discovery of our thoughts, while we conceal them, as by continuing and prosecuting temptations or suggestions, till our trouble or passions, do some way discover how it is with us. By all which it appears that his guessings and conjectures, do seldom fail him. It is now time to speak to the other question, which is Question 2. Whether and how far Satan knows things to come? Answer. To this I shall return answer in these two conclusions. Conclusion 1. First, there is a way of knowing future things, which is beyond the knowledge of devils, and proper only to God. Isaiah 23, their God puts the competition betwixt himself and idols, about the truth of a deity, upon this issue, that he that can show the things that are to come hereafter, he is God, which because they cannot do, he doth hereby evince them to be no gods. If Satan could truly and properly have done this, he had had a plea for a godhead. In divine predictions two things are to be considered. 1. The matter foretold, when the events of things contingent, and as to second causes casual, depending upon indeterminate causes, are foretold. 2. The manner, when these things are not uncertainly, or conjecturally, or darkly, but clearly, certainly, infallibly, and fully predicted. Of this nature are divine predictions, which Satan cannot perform, nor yet the angels in heaven. Conclusion 2. Secondly, yet Satan hath such advantages for the knowledge of future things, and such means and helps for a discovery of them, that his conjectures have often come to pass. 1. First, he knows the causes of things, which are secret to us. Upon which he seems to foretell many things strange to us, as a physician may foretell the effects, workings, and issues of a disease, as seeing them in the causes, which would pass for little less than prophecy among the vulgar. Thus an astrologer foretells eclipses, which would be taken for a divine excellency, where the knowledge of the ground of these foretellings had not taken away the wonder. 2. Secondly, many things are made known to him by immediate divine revelation. We know not the intercourse betwixt God and Satan in the matter of Job. Satan, having obtained his commission to afflict him, might have made a long prophecy of what should come to pass in reference to Job, his children and substance. How many such predictions he might make, we little know. 3. Thirdly, he hath a deep insight in affairs of kingdoms and states, and so, might, from his experience and observation, easily conjecture mutations and alterations. A politician may do much this way. For aught we know, Satan's prophecy, in the likeness of Samuel, to Saul, of his ruin, and the translation of his kingdom to David, might be no more than a conjectural conclusion, from his comparing the order of the present providence, with former threatenings and promises. 4. Fourthly, he hath a greater understanding of Scripture prophecies, than ordinarily the wisest men have, so that at second hand he might be able to foretell what shall come to pass. Whilst we, that do not so clearly see into Scripture predictions, may not be able to find out the matter. Hence by oracle he foretold Alexander of his success, which he knew from the prophecy of Daniel, chapter 11, long before. 5. Fifthly, he hath advantage from his nature as a spirit, by which he overhears and sees the private actings, complottings, and preparations of men in reference to certain undertakings, and can easily, by his agents, communicate such counsels, or resolves in remote countries and kingdoms, which must pass for real predictions, if the event answer accordingly. 6. Sixthly, he can foretell, and with probability of success, such things as he, by temptation is about to put men upon, especially seeing he can choose such instruments as he, from experience, knows are not likely to fail his enterprise. 7. Seventhly, to this may be added, the way and manner by which he expresseth himself, either in doubtful or enigmatical terms, or in general expressions, which may be applied to the event, what way soever it should happen. Of these, authors have observed many instances, which were superfluous to enumerate. Satan's knowledge being thus explained, it is easy to imagine what an advantage it is to him in the management of his temptations. 4. First, he by this means knows our tempers and dispositions. Secondly, and what is most likely to prevail with us. Thirdly, how inclinable we are upon any motion made to us, and what hope to gain upon us. Fourthly, he knows fit times, seasons, and advantages against us. Fifthly, he knows how to pursue suggestions, and can choose strong reasons to urge us withal. Sixthly, he knows how to delude our senses, to disturb our passions. Seventhly, he knows all the ways and arts of affrightments, vexations, disquietments, hindrances, and disturbances of duty. 8. Eighthly, he by this means is furnished with skill, for his public cheats and delusions in the world. How to amuse, astonish, and amaze men into errors and mistakes, which he hath always endeavored with very great success in the world, as we shall see hereafter. Thanks.